Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to r/MaliciousCompliance, where people follow orders to spite someone. And in this episode, guys, it's all about people getting back at their bosses. So if you've ever had a bad boss, you don't want to miss these satisfying stories. I hope you enjoy them. Subscribe if you're not subscribed. And as always, you can send or link your post to this email right here. Let's dive in. So this happened in 2013. I had been offered a job as an assistant at a small fashion e-commerce, and I was so excited. Now, there were red flags from the beginning. Like, the existing assistant who sat next to me was a little hesitant when I asked if the company was good to work for, and she told me that a lot of employees had come and gone for various undisclosed reasons. But at that moment, I was too naive and enthusiastic to really pay attention. I just wanted a job. I came to find out that our boss, the business co-owner, was not quite the easygoing fun boss that he painted himself to be. The guy constantly reminded us how lucky we were to be working there, and how we could easily be stacking shelves in a supermarket for the same wage. My fellow assistant truly did far too much for the company given her title, and my boss also constantly compared my work ethic to hers, even though I was working through my legal breaks and lunches along with her, never knowing what my finishing time would be. During a period of a couple of months, I witnessed at least 3 other employees quit or be fired. One was let go because she fell ill. One quit on the spot after seeing that we were selling broken products, and one simply wouldn't put up with the unreasonable scheduling. It was coming up to Christmas, and the businesses were incredibly busy with orders. In addition to giving up my breaks, lunches, and set finishing times, the boss decided that we would all start coming into the office an hour earlier, starting tomorrow. And no, that was not a request. I had taken this on as a part-time job, so I was already struggling to cope, and I confided in him about my mental health problems. Now, he took my concerns and he laughed in my face, asking if I was just too damn lazy to get up early. The guy said that he could easily replace me anyways, and that he was thinking about firing me, and that he would enjoy seeing me stack shelves when he next went to the supermarket. And that was the final straw for me. I called his bluff. At the end of the workday, I went to his office and I quit, surely before he could gloatingly fire me in front of everyone. Now, it must have been a big inconvenience for him to lose an employee 2 to 3 weeks before Christmas, but oh well. He could just hire someone else, right? Because, as he's always said, we're replaceable. But that didn't happen, not quite so easily. Now that I wasn't working, I needed to claim job seekers allowance, which is UK unemployment benefits, and they wouldn't award it if I had just quit a job on a whim. So I typed up a long, detailed list of everything that was going on in that office, the law-breaking, the bullying, and then handed it to my job center advisor. She was not happy, and I was informed that the company would no longer be allowed to advertise job openings with them. And this is where they were getting all their hires from. The additional nail in the coffin is the boss and his wife just bought a new, bigger premises to cope with the increased demand for their products. Demand that now couldn't be met because they couldn't hire and keep enough people to pack the orders. So a few years after all this, I looked up the company out of curiosity, and it was dissolved. Now, of course, I do not believe, nor want to believe, that I brought down this e-commerce all by myself. But it does make me happy that by calling my boss's bluff, I prevented more employees from an awful experience. Yeah, that owner got everything that was coming to him, guys. Like, scummy business owners like that always get their just desserts. It just takes time. But with that said, I find it so odd, guys, how the owner would brag that he's paying his employees the same wages as people who stock shelves in grocery stores. Like, would the idiot brag and be like, "You don't like working here? Well, go do a much easier, simpler, stress-free job for the same wage." If that were me, I would have been like, "Hey boss, don't threaten me with a good time." Like, I'm not surprised why the turnover was so high. I work at a tech company, and my official job is fairly simple, and I find that I have free time decently often. My unofficial extra jobs used to be keeping track of the morale level in the office and doing things to bring up said morale. I would also be tech support on the computers in the office, mostly because I'm faster than IT at getting things going again, and often enough, I help out other departments when I have the time. With that said, a promotion comes up and I apply for it. The boss gives it to someone who had only been hired a few months ago. Now, I was annoyed by this because I'd been working there for much longer and my evaluations are always glowing. Another promotion comes up. I get denied again, in favor of the person who's only been there a few months. 3 more promotions come and go, and my boss always gives the new people the promotions. At this point, several people who have been hired around the same time I have all quit to seek opportunity elsewhere, and many people who got promoted also quit because they used their promotion to get a better job elsewhere. Also, the boss likes to send an email with some BS canned denial letter with some official reason as to why you were not selected. I eventually decide to confront my boss about it, and I bluntly asked, what am I doing wrong? Why are people who have been recently hired getting promotions over me? And the boss could not answer. The guy just stumbles and stutters for like 2 minutes. And like the sniveling pencil neck he is, eventually he blurts out, look, you don't have much experience in dealing with people below you, and I really need you to just do your job. And I'm thinking, alright, as you wish. If that's what he wants, that's what he will get. Now, anytime someone asked me if I could get their computer, monitor, printer, etc. working properly again, I tell them to just ask tech support. My bi-weekly delivery of homemade confections has come to an end, and I no longer lift a finger to help other departments, even when I do have the extra time. Now, tech support can take a surprisingly long time to get around to our department. Something I could have done in 10 minutes will take them an hour or more. It's also a 3-person department in a fairly large office building. My boss pulls me into his office a while back and he asked if I have a problem. I told him I don't have a problem. He then reminds me of all the things I used to do that I suddenly don't do anymore. Then makes the mistake of asking me why I stopped. I told him that none of those were part of my job description and that I only did those things as a courtesy. But since he told me to just do my job and strongly hinted that I'm to go no further in the company, I'm just going to do what's a part of my official job description from now on. Nothing more. My boss went from having a smirk on his face and ready to tear into me for my sudden change in demeanor to realizing that he can't say a damn thing because he knows he can't order me to do anything outside of my job description. My boss realizes that he screwed himself and his entire department over by basically telling me to shut up and get back to work. Guys, OP needs to find a new job as soon as possible, and I'll tell you why. I used to work with someone in OP's same position. Like, the guy was the hardest worker ever, went above and beyond when he did his job, and he would never get promoted. And one day I talked to him and I realized why, and this might be the reason OP was never promoted. So when you're really good at what you do, like you're fast, efficient, do the job really well, you become hard to replace. And clearly the bosses see that and want to keep the person in the role because the replacement might not be able to do the job so well, which makes the person too valuable to promote. And this person thinks the same. This person comments, he would never admit it, but your boss thought you did a great job at your current position. Therefore, he did not want you to move at all. He wanted to keep you right where you are. It's your fault for doing such a damned good job. He valued you, but he will never admit it. So a few years ago, I took a customer service job, and my boss Shirley was the laziest, snarkiest person that I've ever worked around. The woman would spend her day on social media and personal calls, while her inbox grew. Shirley's boss would rarely come around and was happy as long as Shirley didn't bring any problems to her. So of course, Shirley didn't. She buried any problems. After I'd been there a couple of weeks, Shirley was showing us some new procedure. I don't even remember what it was, but it was something I'd done in a previous position, and there was a much easier way of doing it. So naturally, I asked if I could make a suggestion. Shirley instantly shot it down and said, "No, I don't want suggestions or help unless I specifically ask for them. I'm the boss. I tell you what to do." It was embarrassing and demeaning, to say the least. So when Shirley went to lunch, the gal who had been training me asked me what I was going to suggest, and I showed her. She agreed that it was a much more efficient way, and then she showed the others. She told me that they just worked around Shirley. They all disliked her, and they often just waited until she was away to discuss problems and then come up with solutions and left Shirley out of it. A year later, the lady who trained me retired. But before she left, she showed me how to run phone statistic reports. They showed how many calls each rep took, how long the calls lasted, how many rings before each call was answered, typical call center stuff. She asked me to take over putting together a report, including email statistics each month, to send to the e-commerce manager. And Shirley was to give me the email statistics. So after the first month, I emailed Shirley asking for the email stats. She ignored it. After the second month, the same thing. That's when I decided if it wasn't important to her, then I just wouldn't do it. I figured if she questioned, I would show the emails I sent to Shirley, reminding her so my butt would be covered. But nothing ever came of it. So things just went on for the next couple of years, and then came the announcement that Shirley's boss had been fired. And while they searched for a replacement, Shirley would be reporting to the president of the company, and she was terrified. He had her jumping through hoops. He had her submitting reports to him, attending meetings, answering questions, and she returned from one meeting frantic. She told the senior rep Angela that he wanted her to bring him phone statistics that afternoon, and she had no idea where to get them. Now, the thing is, I knew, and Angela knew I knew. So while Shirley sat at her desk trying to figure out what to do, Angela just comes to me and said, "You aren't gonna tell her, right?" I say to her, well, she once told me that she didn't want my help unless she specifically asked for it, right? Well, she hasn't specifically asked me. And at that, we both grinned at each other. Shirley went to her meeting empty-handed, and she ended up getting fired a week later. Now, I don't think it was because she didn't have the phone statistics, but it was probably one of the many things that made it apparent that she did not know what she was doing. Guys, you ever read a story and think, how the heck did that person become boss? I can't believe Shirley lasted that long at the company, to be honest. And guys, I have a feeling she was friends with her boss who got fired, because that's usually how it works. Some people just be buddy-buddy with the direct boss, coast for a few years, but once that boss is out the door, surprise, surprise, they are too. Because they're useless, like Shirley. This happened around 5 years ago at the transport company I used to work for. I was a forklift driver at the time, and I was responsible for loading our interstate trailer that was going to Brisbane from Sydney. I had been doing this for about a year. I hadn't been at this place for long, and the place was massive. There was 9 supervisors on the shift, and I had only worked under 2 supervisors who were pretty cool, and they let me do what I was paid to do undisturbed. You see, I happen to be a great forklift driver. I know how to load an effing trailer because that's what I'm paid to do. It's not very complicated, but also not simple. And also, not everyone can load properly. And poor loading can lead to an accident. Again, it's not complicated, but also not easy. So one day, I walk into work and start my shift like usual. And Mark, my supervisor at the time, finds me and tells me he got shifted to another area and I'll be working under a person who I'll call Bitch from now on. And yes, I did say Bitch because everyone hated him so much that we called him that. Now, I had never worked with him before and it really didn't bother me, so I thought maybe he would leave me to do my job. So I get to my trailer after getting my forklift, and what do you know? The guy is standing right next to it. He looks down at his watch, looks up at me, and he starts shaking his head and saying, "You're 5 minutes late," with an annoyed look on his face. As I was about to explain what happened, being stopped by my old supervisor, the guy cuts me off without a chance to explain and says, "Get off and open your trailer." I tell him, no, I'm not a strapper, I'm a loader. Now for some context, I'll explain. My trailer gets extremely busy, so I get my own personal strapper who stays with me. I could end up pushing out 15 B-doubles by myself a night, so I have to be quick, which means I don't have time to strap my own trailer. This is done to ensure that I could focus on staging my freight as well as loading it, since the bay where my pallets are gets absolutely packed every single night, so I have to make sure it stays clear. So back to the story. So the bitch repeats himself and proceeds to tell me that he wasn't going to tell me again. Trying to lighten up the mood, I don't know why I thought it would be funny, but I say to him, "Oh good, because I really don't want to fight with you, and I'm glad you understand." The guy then went red, his face lights up, and he starts cussing at me, calling me an effing idiot. He then demands I get off and strap my own trailer. And at that point, I simply smiled and say, "Okay, boss, but are you sure?" And the guy replies in a fit saying, "I'm the effing boss. Just effing do it." So I did. I did exactly what he told me to do. When my strapper shows up, I told him not to worry because I'd been told to do it by the guy. He laughed and said, "Are you sure?" I just said, "Yep, that's what I told him, but oh well." And I intentionally took my time. It took me almost an hour to open that trailer and strap it. When boss comes back, he completely lost it at me saying, "What the F are you doing? This trailer should be finished." I just smiled at him and said, "It is finished. I just finished strapping it." And this sent him over the edge. The guy starts abusing me and he wasn't quiet about it. In the middle of him trying to destroy me, I just kept saying, "But sir, you said to get off and strap my trailer." Well, this trailer had no straps on it, so I had to put new ones on. He can see that management's watching us from the control tower, and I'm pretty sure they're trying to radio him, asking what's going on. Why is the first trailer not out? This set every single delivery out that night over an hour late. And to make matters worse, it cost the company buckets of money, paying drivers for the late departure and dropping our interstate rate of delivery dramatically. At the end of the shift, I'm called up to the office with the union rep, the managers, and bitch. The manager asked what the F happened, because this hasn't happened in over a year. Why did things go south? And that's when bitch boss turns to me and he says with a smug look on his face, "Well, this idiot seems to think that he could take his time strapping his trailer." And at that very moment, I couldn't help it. I just effing laughed at him. I then turned to my union rep and asked if he needed me to stay here, and he says I can go, with a huge smile on his face. At this point, the boss is confused, and he starts asking what we're going on about. My manager, who is noticeably pissed at this point, couldn't even wait until I left. He looks at bitch and directly yells, "How many effing times did I tell you in the meeting the interstate loader under no circumstances is to strap his own trailer?" You see, this is an agreement set out by the union and the company, because Brisbane literally gets hammered every night. So because the workload for Brisbane is insane and things need to get out fast, you get your own person to help strap the trailers you load. And it's a sackable offense for a supervisor to force a loader to strap his trailer. I give my union rep a high five before he turns to my manager and bitch and says, "Well, manager, you know the agreement. Unless you want us to walk, I want him gone." And just like that, he was fired on the spot. That idiot got what he deserved. He insisted that I strap it, so I did. I strapped him right out of an effing job. And the thing is, if he hadn't told on himself and admitted he told me to strap it in front of the union, he would have gotten away with it. But this fool thought he had one up on me and made our job getting him fired so easy. Normally, supervisors that are jerks are also smart and know when to mess with a worker and when not to. This idiot thought he got me, but he ended up getting himself. Guys, what a super satisfying story. And again, a boss that got what was coming to him, guys. And here's a tip. If you're ordering people to do something and they ask you 3 times, "Are you really sure you want this?" there should be giant red flags popping up in your head, and hopefully they won't be drowned out by the sound of your massive ego, like this boss. So this happened a few years back, but I just remembered it at work today. I work at a spa/salon at the front desk. The employees get a pretty good discount on services, so plenty of them get their nails, lashes, hair, etc. done regularly. The rule is pay when you're done your service, like any other client. But some wiggle room was allowed. In the case of payday's tomorrow, I'll pay as soon as the money goes through. Or if the front desk was busy helping clients and they had to leave, because we know where they'll be tomorrow morning at 9. We would put these services on hold and the employee would pay as soon as possible. It mostly worked on the honor system of don't abuse it or we can't have nice things anymore. Now, most employees were pretty good about it, but of course, there were the few that regularly forgot, for days or weeks. Or I can't pay today, I'll pay tomorrow. These few were usually the ones with most seniority, in years worked, not power. So one of these employees in particular was far worse than the others. With that said, on to the compliance. So one day, the owner comes in to pick some things up and asks someone at the desk, "What's that little button with 23 notifications on it?" So I stepped in and answered, "That's the staff services that are on hold. We have less than 23 employees, which means that one or more employees owed for multiple services," and the owner exploded. She starts shouting that it's absolutely ridiculous that this many people owed her money, and how could you have let it get this far? And who are the employees that owe? I start to reply, well, most of them are, and that's when she cuts me off and says, "Just add it up right now and tell me, so I can talk to them about taking it out of their paychecks." I start to open up the window to show the list of employees who owed for services, and I said, "Okay, just letting you know that the reason there are so many is..." She then cuts me off again, and she says, "Ugh, I'm sick of my employees always having an excuse. There is no excuse, just do it." And with that, she storms off to the staff room. My other desk coworker, who had been hiding in the bathroom, and I can't blame her to be honest, comes out and asked, "Did she see the names on the list?" I replied she did not, and then got to work on my list, writing out the names of the employees next to their total owing for their services, in order, from most owed to the least. About 30 minutes later, the owner comes down in all her holy terror, and she demands the list. I hand it to her, and after glancing at it for a moment, she froze. And y'all, if you've never seen someone lose their steam in front of your very eyes, I highly recommend it. At the very top of my list is the owner's adult daughter's name, who happens to be an employee, and she consequently owes the spa nearly $400 in services, and that's after her 50% discount. She had gone back to school recently, and she was only working part-time, so I guess she was short on money, and she regularly snuck out without paying for her lashes and her nails. So back to my shell-shocked boss. After staring at the list for a moment in silence, she went to the computer, opened up the list of on-hold services, and she scrolls through. 90% of the services on hold are her daughter's. After a few more minutes of staring at the list, she finally looks up and says, "Well, I'm her mother and the owner, so I'm gonna pay this. However, I want all the receipts to give her, and she is not to get any services unless she prepays. I'll tell her this myself. Make sure the rest of the on-holds are paid by the end of the employee's next shifts." So with that, I cashed her daughter's services out, bundled the receipts, gave them to my boss, she thanked me, and then left. I'm simultaneously sad and relieved that I wasn't present for the verbal ass-whipping her daughter received. Hey, good on the owner for at least calming down and owning up to it, right? And I'm not gonna lie, guys, I did not expect that. And I only wish I was there to see the daughter's reaction when mom did confront her about it. Yikes. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of our /MaliciousCompliance. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's super satisfying stories. If you did, hit that thumbs up, and if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss these crazy stories. And if you missed the last episode on the channel, it's an r/ entitled People episode, where a Karen attacks someone at Thanksgiving because their food is absolutely disgusting. Imagine that. Guys, go check it out if you haven't, and myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.